Hey, it's BaileyWiki. This is the March 2025 Design With Me series where I build Foundry scenes using free modules and tools. All assets are BaileyWiki assets, available with a 1-month Patreon sub, but these tools work with any creator's assets. So unless I say otherwise, all modules are free. Let's dive into the next map. Hey guys, we're going to build a scene here today. And what we're going to start with is just copying one of the diorama templates for the ruins. And then we're going to go ahead and activate that scene here. Then we're going to just start double clicking this main tile here. We're going to look for just a starting point, something that I think we want to build a scene around. Since these are ruins, they all have these sort of suggestions of walls, and you can see they're like feathered in certain edges so that they can merge with other tiles. But I like this process. I like this process of just seeing what's in the library, and if it helps me think of a story that I'm trying to tell in my current campaign. And I'm just clicking through some extra ones just so you can see the breadth. There's really hundreds of these, so there's a lot to pick from. And that's why I use randomization, because sometimes when you're going serially through a bunch of options, that's kind of one way to do it. But I like to kind of jump around and let my imagination kind of get captured by what I click on. And trying to decide between like dirt and grass. I'm also thinking about where I might extend this map. You can see there's a lot of options here. So I think I like this one. But if you have been watching, we have this new category browser, and I'm opening it up and I'm going to the nature, and then I'm going to click into the diorama tiles, which is what these really are. And I'll go down to the ruins specifically. And now I'm looking at sort of everything that's available. And to grab this one looks great. Thinking maybe I might merge them. Seeing what else is in here. This category browser is just awesome and just kind of lets you jump to, whole categories of maps, and did something recently where we made it load a lot faster. These are actually pretty huge tiles just from a size perspective, and we wanted them to load faster, so we created thumbnails, and so now thumbnails load in that any kind of preview that you see there with Mass Edit. Okay, so I've decided I like this. Let's start here. I'm going to place a character on there, and just to get a sense of my scale, is this how big I want the map to be? Because there's nothing on this map that requires a certain scale. That could be a huge tower, it could be a small tower the size of a chimney, right? And the trees can be bushes, so that's why it's kind of the intention behind the diorama tiles. They have their shadows all going in the same direction, and there's nothing in them that requires a certain scale, so it makes them just that much more flexible. And I also have as a preview or as a preset this ambient day and night audio, which is super nice. And for some reason, there's a bug that has caught this preview up here in the corner. So now that I have my ambient audio, and of course I can change those audio choices. I can just click on any of those audios and bring something else up from the library. But here I'm going to put some of the new woodworker stuff in. So I'm in equipment and crafting, and then there's this woodworker or carpenter category. And these up top in the browser are all prefabs. So that tends to imply there's more than just tiles involved. As you can see, there's lights and there's walls here as well. And these are all set up so that when it becomes dark, the light occludes around these and it just makes it look more realistic, like there's lamps underneath these canopies. And we'll keep looking around for some more of these. This time we're looking for blacksmith. So I just went up to the top instead of trying to find blacksmith in the category browser. I can just type it and it'll give me anything that matches it. I just feel like if this is going to be some kind of encampment, there's probably going to be some means of creating, weaponry or defenses. So we'll put down maybe a couple blacksmith operations here. And I'm just going to try to find some barriers here. We've got a couple. And if I just, press select and add a couple to a brush, now I've got a couple of these to sort of set up. Just maybe some defenses here. I feel like this bottom of the map is going to be the egress point to the map. So let's make this a defendable area. I'm just taking advantage of the natural terrain that came, with the diorama tile to kind of build around that. This is why it's so effective to use these diorama tiles. You get all of this like forced terrain, and when people design camps in real life, they are forced to use the terrain around them. It's what makes the camp look, realistic. They have to accommodate for it, and that's what I like about diorama tiles. It kind of gives you a set of design constraints, and then you can design within them. But you also don't have to put in all the work of laying down all the rocks and the trees and everything else. You can get that sort of rich texture without any of the effort involved. And we're just going to grab a wagon. I'm going to resize this. So I'm just holding down Alt while I spin the mouse wheel. And since these are red pixels, they can be colored really anything. Anything you see on here that's red could be recolored. So I could literally do all those other awnings. We'll just make this kind of a brown color, just kind of mute it a little bit. Not like that. Just looks like a lot of equipment. Maybe this is like a main equipment um, wagon. And place some of these other wagons in here. These wagons come with lights as well. This one we're going to recolor too. Yeah, I like that kind of muted color. And then let's give this just a little drop shadow. Helps kind of make it stand up off the map. Gives it some three-dimensionality. So you can see we're only a couple minutes in, and we've got a pretty effective map with lights and ambient audio. Let's look up some ballista. I think we'll put some ballista up here. This could make for a good map. These are matte enabled, so I'm just double clicking them and cycling through what my options are. You can see some of these are more elvish and other types. I'm going to give them a little drop shadow also just to help them stand up off of that wall. And now I'm thinking I want a way to get into that tower. So we'll do some fancy matte work here. I've just looked up a door, and this one's a nice, portal. I'm going to make it a little bit darker just to match the shadow. So it looks like it's sitting in the shadow of that tower. And let's just see if we can find a good spot for it. This will be the way that players get into and out of that tower. And I'm thinking maybe use a teleport, but yeah, this one is matte enabled. Let's find I don't know what would go up here. And as I'm thinking about it, it really needs to be an actual teleport. Now these are all different kinds of prefabs, but I want to find a trap door that would work well up here. And this one looks pretty simple. I'm going to make it match exactly one square. And I'll just darken it so it fits in that shadow a little bit. Okay, so now I've got my two tiles that will link together um, as teleports. Now let's just go ahead and use those tiles themselves for the monk's active tiles. So we'll go to triggers, and whenever something stops within the tile, we're going to have that set off an action. And our action is going to be the teleport action. Oh, well, first we'll start with playing a sound file. I always like just to put a little sound with the teleport just to make it sound like, something's happening. And this is the stairs up. That's just a common one that I use. And we set it so it doesn't fade just because it's a short file. We don't need it to fade out or anything. And then we'll say the trigger token, we'll set it off, and then we will select our coordinates. In this case, we're going to use Tagger. As a content creator, I like to use Tagger because it makes it more consistent. You can move things in and out of um, compendiums and they still work. We'll say only for the active scene, so we don't create any other chaos. And we'll just give it a code, teleport 01, and we'll snap to grid and everything else will leave blank. I like to have the play the sound file first just because it takes a second to load it. So I like to have that sound start. And you didn't see at the bottom, I just named this TP02. So that's a tag for the one we just finished. Then I pressed Shift E and I just right clicked triggers and I copied everything. And then I pressed Control C and then Control V on the new tile. And what that did, that gave that new tile all of the settings that I just created. So I don't have to redo everything that I just did. We'll name this the opposite. We'll name this TP01. So that's the destination instead of TP02. And we'll go into our triggers and we'll flip that teleport destination from 01 to 02. But everything else we've already got. I don't have to recreate all the other settings. They just match. This is just the power of mass edit. And I do want to make sure that my player teleports to the center of the tile. So I'll just come in here and adjust that also instead of randomly within. That should work. Okay, so now we can test this out. And it doesn't work. So what could be happening? Right? Well, my player's going underneath it, so clearly this is built as an overhead tile. And that's a problem that we're going to have to fix. We have to set it to 0 if we want the player to actually trigger it, because the player's actually 10 feet underneath it. All right, so now it's working. We can hear our little footsteps, we can get to our ballista, and it works back the other direction. Now, there are ways to make that teleport still work by walking underneath it, but we'll keep it simple. Okay, now I want some walls up here just because I want there to be the sense of, um, you can't see up into the tower unless you're up in the tower, then you have some advantages to see down. So we'll just create some starting walls. And I had them all selected and just press Shift E, and using Mass Edit, I can change just certain attributes of the walls. All right, so now I can't see up there, so that's the start of what I'd like to do. I'm going to reset Fog of War. Okay, yeah, just making sure that it's totally obscured. And then at the top, because I made them one direction walls, they don't hinder anything looking out the other direction. I think that's how I want it. Now I'm just going to adjust the walls themselves. So maybe I just get a little bit more of the artwork in there. I want this to be clear to players that there's some defenses, but they can't necessarily see the number of enemies or whatever's happening up here in this tower. maybe my players are in this tower themselves and they're defending from enemies. That looks pretty good. Let's go back to our browser and let's look up lighting and then some campfires. And we'll kind of resize these with the Alt key. That looks good. Got a couple of torches. Kind of want to strategically place these around. There's probably going to be some torches here at the main entrance. And we'll turn the lights down so we can see how this lighting really makes the scene pop. And you can see as it's coming on all those occlusion methods and things so that the light really looks like it's underneath these canopies. It's pretty effective. I'm going to select all these, press Shift E with Mass Edit, and we're going to adjust these so that the light only comes on or only really shows on the scene at night. Because otherwise it just kind of washes things out in the daytime. It's not necessary. I think you probably even get some performance benefits from not having it show up. And well, let's put some lighting up here on the top of the tower, but we want it to not block the light, so it actually illuminates the tower itself, once you're in it. So that's good. It's feeling pretty good. Let's walk back into our tower at night and see what we survey. Oh, this looks pretty great. And again, just in terms of a time check, we've only been at this a few minutes, but we've got a pretty compelling map. All right, so I'm looking up decoration, hangings, and flags, and I'm looking at some of these animated flags. You can see they're still counterparts, which helps you kind of see what might be there. But these are just different kinds of things that just bring a little life to the map. And so let's grab this one, and this is just a single animated tile. We'll put it over the doorway here. And since it's red, we can recolor it. And so why don't we pick like some kind of green color? Maybe that's something to do with the faction that has built or occupied this particular location. And I can't quite get the angle that I want, so I'm going to manually just kind of change this. Unfortunately, Foundry doesn't let you do fine-tune angling without doing it manually, so we'll just do it ourselves here. Here we go. Now we're matching the door. And I like that. It just helps show that, brings the eye to the fact that there's a door there, and that might help players realize that they can go there. Let's set this one, though, to overhead. That way players walk underneath the flag and not over it. And let's find our player again. By the way, all those torches are toggleable. You can, in that campfire, you can just click them and it'll toggle them on and off. We can put something in this wagon if we want to. Yeah, this is feeling pretty good. Okay, let's bring our category browser up again and let's go to settlements and then camping. This is just stuff that you would put in a camp, between tents and wagons and torches. If you're going to build a camp, this is probably some of the main pieces that you would use. And within this, we'll search for tent. Notice I turned off the global search. I find a couple of tents here. These are all working tents. That red one's colorable, of course. And let's turn on the scale so that these come out the right size. So this is just like a single person tent. I just want to put a couple of these around here just to imply there's, this camp is used as a base of operation. Notice they come with special sounds. And the interiors are actually made with tiles. So you can change the interiors of these tents to something else if you'd like. That's feeling pretty good. Might hide some NPCs in there, or maybe there's somebody that we're trying to rescue inside of a tent, and the players have to somehow sneak around to get in there. And let's go ahead and give this a name. Call this outpost. And what do we call this? It's kind of a swampy region. I think we'll call this a swamp. And there's a ruin, of course, in the swamp, so I think that all works. And that's feeling pretty good. We'll delete that. We can delete our map nodes later. Up in the top left, there's a little button we can press to delete anything that's a map note, and that gives us our starting point. But that's it. So first map down. Let's move on to the next one.
So that's it for this map. Grab these assets on my Patreon, link in the description if you want to support the channel as well. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, hit the bell for updates, and drop a like or a comment. Your questions actually help the community and the algorithm. Thanks for watching, and have fun making your maps.